And it only got worse. The decade before the Telecommunications Act, 50 companies controlled the majority of the media landscape. By 1992, that number had fallen by 50%. And after the passage of the new TV and broadcast legislation, the number quickly shrank even further, to just 6 in the year 2000. And that's roughly where it stayed to this day. Not because these giant companies wouldn't love to own more of the market, but because they physically can't without triggering antitrust lawsuits. To put in perspective just how much of the market the Big Five control, let's have a look at some of the media operations they own. We'll start with News Corp. Rupert Murdoch's empire owns Fox, including all of its branches like Fox Sports and 20th Century Fox. It owns FX, GQ, The Wall Street Journal, Sky News, HarperCollins Publishing, The New York Post, National Geographic, Zondervan, MarketWatch, and countless others. National Amusements owns CBS and its branches. It owns Paramount, Nickelodeon, MTV, BET, GameSpot, VH1, Comedy Central, The Smithsonian Channel, Spike, Showtime, Simon & Schuster, Game FAQs, CNET, and Viacom, once a major player in the media world itself before being consumed. AT&T, the newest member of the Big Five after acquiring the massive Time Warner, controls CNN, HBO, Cartoon Network, Warner Brothers, DC, TBS, truTV, Cinemax, TNT, Adult Swim, part of Hulu, Turner Classic Movies, Time Magazine, Rocksteady Games, and Time Warner Cable, to name just a few. Comcast, which has a well-deserved reputation as a thoroughly evil corporation, owns NBC, MSNBC, USA Network, Sci-Fi, Fandango, Universal Pictures, Focus Features, Working Title Films, Rotten Tomatoes, Bravo, Oxygen, Big Idea, part of Hulu, MLB Network, NHL Network, and dozens of internet ventures. And finally, everyone's favorite family-friendly corporate overlord, Disney. Disney owns ABC, Pixar, DreamWorks, ESPN, Lifetime, The History Channel, Marvel, Lucasfilm, Hollywood Records, Touchstone Pictures, Vice, plus a giant swath of the comic book industry thanks to their acquisition of Marvel. And of course, these are only a small sample of the media operations owned by the Big Five. Odds are, if you can think of a network you watch, you'll find it's owned by one of them. The one main exception you may have noticed is Netflix. Netflix, while not outright owned by any of the Big Five, is owned in part by a number of large interests, some of them very shady, like the well-known BlackRock, the world's largest shadow bank. So really, no matter what your network preferences, you're only being offered the illusion of choice. In reality, almost everything we watch or read, whether on TV, online, in theaters, or on the pages of a book, newspaper, or magazine, is just a tentacle of the enormous kraken that is the corporate media landscape. No matter what perspectives these outlets offer, remember that they're all owned by the same ultra-wealthy business interests, and they have their own agenda. The Big Five own all the major news networks, and the messages they put out are designed to reinforce the status quo, peddling minor aesthetic disagreements and diverting attention away from serious societal problems. This is simply the natural conclusion of the hyper-capitalist system we have in the United States. Powerful companies will grow larger and larger, consuming smaller companies that can't compete, acquiring more and more properties until they've reached the very limit of what could be considered legal, thereby dodging antitrust laws and maintaining the maximum amount of power, profit, and cultural significance. And this is only one area of the American market. Every other aspect of American life is becoming similarly consolidated, from pharmaceuticals to energy to manufacturing. The threat of the monopolization of every area of modern life is real, and its consequences could be disastrous and far-reaching, except for those pulling the strings at the very top. If you've watched my last few videos, you'll have noticed that YouTube has been demonetizing a lot of them. That's why some of my creator friends and I teamed up to build Nebula, a streaming platform built by and for YouTubers like me, so we don't have to worry about demonetization. Since Nebula is all about creating thoughtful content, we've partnered with CuriosityStream, an established streaming platform with a solid track record of caring about great educational content and the financial security of those who produce it. CuriosityStream is an online streaming service with thousands of nonfiction titles from some of the best filmmakers in the game. You can find tons of great episodes like American Icon's Walt Disney, which is a great quick watch if you enjoyed this week's video. As educational creators ourselves, we love CuriosityStream, so we've worked out a deal where if you sign up for CuriosityStream at the link below, you'll also get access to Nebula, 100% free. For a limited time, CuriosityStream is offering 26% off their annual plan. That's less than $15 a year for both CuriosityStream and Nebula, which, in my humble opinion, is a pretty great deal. Since we're all stuck inside anyway, why not spend some time watching fascinating documentaries on CuriosityStream, or check out Nebula's exclusive content, like Real Engineering's Logistics of World War II series. You can also watch all my videos as they were intended, ad-free. There really is something for everyone, and by signing up at the link below, you're helping us produce more content without the fear of demonetization. Give CuriosityStream a shot and get free access to Nebula when you sign up using the link below. It really does help support my channel and educational creators all across YouTube. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, consider subscribing to stay up to date with my latest episodes. If you hated it, go ahead and drop a thumbs down. You can check out my previous episodes by clicking the links on your screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.
Choose to lean into it. Every Mazda is engineered to give you effortless control.
I wake up.
This episode is brought to you by CuriosityStream. Get free access to Nebula, the streaming platform built by all your favorite YouTubers, when you sign up for CuriosityStream at the link below. We live in a world dominated by the economic system known as capitalism. Private ownership of the means of production is the norm, giant multinational corporations have a greater GDP than entire countries, and we're currently witnessing the birth of a second Gilded Age, complete with modern-day robber barons and skyrocketing inequality and poverty. For the first time in 100 years, the United States is seeing a real resurgence in class consciousness and criticism of the status quo. We've seen record numbers of protests and rallies, low-wage workers are walking out and demanding better conditions, and the language of class struggle is finally beginning to seep back into the American consciousness. It would be absurd to look around and assert that everything is fine, that capitalism is providing a good life and opportunities for the average person, when every quality of life metric is in decline for everyone except the top few percent. And yet, as always, there are those who are unwilling to acknowledge the reality of the situation, and instead fall back on ignorant or bad faith arguments to defend a failing economic system. In this episode, we're going to look at one argument in particular, the claim that without capitalism, there would be no innovation. Let's start with the assertion itself. Without capitalism, there would be no innovation. What does this imply? It suggests that the sole motivating factor for anyone to do anything is money, the profit motive. It suggests that the only reason society has advanced is because of capitalism. This is quite the claim. And, as we'll see shortly, it is incorrect in both regards. Let's start with the first point, the profit motive as the motivating factor. Once upon a time, people produced food not to sell, but to consume themselves and stockpile for the future. No money exchanged hands, the end. Of course, this is an overly simplistic argument. But people who make claims about the efficacy of the profit motive should remember that capitalism is a fairly recent development in the grand scheme of things. But leaving thousands of years of human history aside, even in the modern capitalist era, there have been countless examples of people choosing to innovate not because they lusted after money, but because it was the right thing to do. One of the more well-known examples is Jonas Salk. Though it was declared eradicated in the Americas in 1994, polio was once a major threat to children around the world. Polio is an infectious disease that attacks the central nervous system and often leads to paralysis. During the first half of the 20th century, what began as localized polio outbreaks had reached epidemic levels in North America, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. And in 1952, the US faced the worst outbreak it had ever experienced, infecting at least 58,000 people, killing 3,145, and leaving over 21,000 more with varying degrees of paralysis in a single year. Some of the worst affected could no longer breathe by themselves, and needed to be placed in what was called an iron lung. This horrible disease brought unspeakable suffering to children around the world. But thanks to a team of innovative scientists led by Dr. Jonas Salk, today polio is little more than a bad memory. Starting in 1948, Dr. Salk dedicated the next 7 years of his life to understanding how polio worked and how we could fight it. In 1955, when the news of Salk's new and effective vaccine was made public, he was hailed as a hero and a miracle worker. Salk became a household name. He could have taken advantage of this newfound fame and made a fortune on the vaccine, but he refused to patent his creation.
Who owns the patent on this vaccine?
Well, the people, I would say. There is no patent. Could you patent the sun?
Jonas Salk chose not to patent the vaccine in order to maximize its availability around the world. By 1959, 90 countries were making use of the polio vaccine, and by 1994, the disease had been completely eradicated in North America. When people first learn about Jonas Salk, many of them are shocked that he chose not to profit from his creation. It's an understandable reaction when the norm in the pharmaceutical industry is criminal price gouging, where